Hey everybody, welcome to another one of these episodes of In the Lead Off the Record. I am Kyle Cheslock. Chase Shields will be popping out from behind that video in just 1 second. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, feel free to leave a comment, leave a message, give us a like on this video. We have a lot of content on our Facebook page, so feel free to check that out. Otherwise, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our YouTube channel, all at The Lead Tool. And actually, we just uploaded these to SoundCloud as well. So for you people that love listening to podcasts in the morning on your way to work or even at the office, feel free to give that a listen as well. I think we have something pretty exciting to talk about today that a lot of people, a lot of sales reps struggle with that happens every single day, and that is the vaunted price objection. And we got talking about it this morning, just some random conversation that Chase and I had, with some of the conversations we're having with dealers, and inevitably this always comes up in conversation, whether we're actually talking to a dealer at a conference, talking to them, whatever it may be. So, I think there's going to be a couple things that you can obviously take away from this today, and, I'll toss it over to Chase to kind of get the ball rolling on this, but, I definitely think it all comes down to not necessarily what you say, but how you say it.
I think a lot of it's that. I think that this is incredibly important for anyone who's selling a commodity. I can't stress that enough. And when I say that, I mean like a prefabricated good. So if you sell pre-manufactured kitchen cabinet doors, flooring, great example.
Awesome example.
Even some like countertops, bathrooms, like stuff like that. Sheet stock, great example.
It's not really different. You can go to any location. More
right, and what I mean is, and I'm not saying like all hardwood, sheet stock is exactly the same. But what I'm saying is that if you carry a brand name like Masco cabinets at a big box store is no different than Masco cabinets from your local contractor or from your local kitchen and bath store. So
that's what we mean by commodity.
It's like a car, a Ford at a dealership, a Ford F-150 in Cincinnati with a certain set of options is the exact same as a Ford F-150 with that same set of options in Los Angeles.
Yep.
There's absolutely no difference. So overcoming the price objection is really helpful because at the end of the day, if you're selling a commodity,
you better be pretty good at it.
Yeah, because you don't, it doesn't really make a difference. You don't have anything.
Yeah, it comes down to like what makes you different, right? Why should I buy from you?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of like really good theory around handling price objections. First of all, I think one area that we see people struggle is they don't hit it head on.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone, who is famous for a lot of like car sales training and got into real estate, commercial real estate, is really famous for like opening up with what can I get you a price on. I know for us, what was big when I was selling retail in the car business was just acknowledging the fact that for your average home furnishings dealer, you're getting shopped against a minimum of 2 or 3 other competitors. So you're getting shopped. So just acknowledge it. It's really actually not that big of a deal because a lot of times and we'll get into some other parts
of this. The elephant in the room, right?
If you're doing, it is the elephant in the room, and if you don't just eliminate it and kind of talk through it, or at least acknowledge it, you're setting yourself behind. I would argue, at least.
Absolutely.
And it's not saying, hey, I know you're going to shop me, so if you need a deal, it's just saying, go check out the selection that's out there.
Again, it's not what it's how you say it, right?
Yeah, and like my dad always says, there are 3 things that you have to sell on. You've got quality, service, and price. And if
you'll never get all 3, right?
No, you can't ever get all 3. And it's look, we deal with this in tech too, and all CRMs are a little different because they're not necessarily there aren't like CRM manufacturers. We all build different products, but people will think, oh, well, same functionality. Well, yeah, I mean, they're free ones. There are CRMs that cost $600 a seat a month.
And the core of what they do is the same as what it's a CRM.
Yeah, so it's if you want to be the price leader, that's totally fine. Go do that. But you have to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice on quality or service. So, when we look at commodities, so back to like cars, again, in the context of our customer base and our viewers, prefab goods, mattresses, Sealy mattresses, Serta mattresses. It doesn't.
There's even online competitors now. I think it's like Casper.
Yeah, so you've got to kind of really take price out of the equation, and because there's only so much you can.
Yeah, it's always going to be there. Price is always going to. It's something you can never get away from.
You acknowledge it and you take it out. In a discussion with a customer, you say, okay, setting price aside. You're talking to me. You want to buy. We used to always say, you're talking to me about my car. You want to buy my car, so you want to buy the, Mannington flooring from me. You want to buy these cherry cabinets from me. Kind of figuring out what the real value points are, because what people are going to do is they're going to buy value. It's not necessarily price. So particularly
with the younger generation too, they spend a lot more on value and service,
right?
And they don't really care as much about price.
So first thing you got to do is acknowledge it, and to piggyback on what Kyle's saying, he was at a conference not long ago for a national group that had, hundreds of locations, and they had people who were talking about their margins. Some of them had 22% margins.
22 is the lowest that I heard.
Some of them had there's one guy who had
54% margin.
So you don't proof. You don't have to be, and you can't tell me, well, it could be regional, whatever. Like the market at this point is national because of the internet.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to be the cheapest. So first thing that I always do is I acknowledge it, and when we get price shopped, we don't. We also know. And I knew this in the car business. I know it here. I know what kind of customer we're looking for.
If you've been in your business any length of time, you're going to know.
Yeah, you know what your ideal customer profile is.
You can't be everything to everybody.
You can't, and you have an idea of who's a good fit, and if you're installing something, who's going to nitpick your installation regardless of how flawless it is.
You don't want that customer.
No, you don't. Let them go somewhere else.
There's somebody else that can handle them. They'll take them gladly.
So definitely acknowledge it, and then that's where you really have when you acknowledge it, you also squash it, and that's one other way of setting price aside. So not only saying Kyle pulling price out of the equation, it's that's one way to do it, but also to just acknowledge and say, hey, let us know what you think. Go out, give more information, and just kind of acknowledging the fact that you're going to be shocked. You kind of
remove it, right? It comes back to removing the price, and here's the thing too. Again, with commodities, there's a lot of options out there. They're going to 3 different locations. If you can take it head on and be like, look, if I'm hitting quality, if I'm hitting service, yet it's still price. That you want to go shop, I'll even point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and we do that too. We do the same thing. So
it's about providing an experience, right?
So, and I guess,
don't be shocked.
Yeah, and the key here is to actually just set price aside. Don't know that it's there, but acknowledge it. And then what you do is you sell on your other 2 points if you're interested. We used to always in the lumber business sell on quality and service. So pulling price out of it,
you kind of isolate them.
What is the quality and service? Yeah, you isolate them, but they're it's one of those things, Kyle. It's like they're together, and then they're they also stand on their own. So and everyone says that they have the service and all that. We hear that all the time, but you really have to be able to, in particularly in retail, when you do carry prefab goods that are commodities, you have to be able to set something. You've got to have something that sets you apart. Like what makes it. And that's where you get into all the stuff you hear us go on and on about all the time about customer experience. I don't want to rehash it for everyone here because we've got
plenty of
video, 90%, 95% of our content is all about this. But it's where how easy is it to buy from you? Because honestly,
this plays right into that.
It does, and it's you can be. Here's the thing with price too. That's funny, and this is why I know you don't have to be the cheapest is it's you can sell somebody something for cheap, but then if you don't service them at all,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't. That happened to a friend of mine. He bought some cheap. I think he bought like cheap carpet, and then like no one knew when it was getting delivered. No one knew. Like he was having to follow. So it's like, that's an example of maybe low price but super poor service. And I don't care. There's going to be someone who's going to watch this who's going to say, "Well, I do quality, service, and price." Well, no, you don't. But
that goes the same thing with I close 90%.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, you can't. You can't. So I think that like too often the biggest mistake that I always see people make and hear is that they run from the fact that there's competition.
Well,
look, there's competition out there. You don't need to be like, oh, I know you're going to go to my competitor, but just you're going to get shopped. It's not a big deal.
Absolutely. And the other big thing that I always see and that I always talk about, even at the conference was a big thing, addressing this, like how do you overcome it? You either price match somebody else down the road, or you just immediately drop your pants on the price to get the deal. And it's damaging your brand.
Every time.
Because over time, it's going to signify that you're a discount brand, or you're a cheap brand, or whatever it may be.
Right.
There's retailers and companies out there that focus specifically on that, and that's their business model. And if that is your business model, that's great. You know your demographic or your ideal customer. But if that isn't, then why just drop your price just to drop it?
Right, and I think that's like the number one negotiating mistake that people make. Is they'll literally just drop the answer.
I think that's the answer, right?
Yeah, the answer is not.
What's the easiest thing to do?
Right. Well, it always is. I mean, and you always have it. That's one of those things I just think you should kind of keep in your back pocket. But your point is great. That number one, you can damage your brand unless you are the
discount retailer.
And that's fine, but you're not going to get full service.
No.
Probably included delivery, LTL, all that.
Yeah, whatever it may be.
Yeah, but the other thing too is
speedy installation.
I think in all my experience across every industry I've been in, price shoppers are hands down the worst after the sale. They're harder. They're harder to retain, and we just ran a whole thing the other day on.
They cost the most
on sales pipeline, which is you can see some of it behind. Yeah, they cost a lot to maintain, but those are the people that you can't get back to the top of your sales funnel. Mm-hmm. You can't get them back in your pipeline.
Yeah.
They just become the accounts become a
total drain on your customer acquisition cost.
We were talking about the sales pipeline.
Yeah.
You've got the lead to the sale to the after sale and then the remarketing. Those last two stages of your pipeline, I have found in every line of work I've been in that the price shoppers, they're the worst because we're never going to get, that's not a lifetime customer. What you want is you want people who are going to stay with you, long term.
It'll suck your margin right up.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that.
In a lot of cases, you'll end up losing money.
Yeah. I think so too.
Particularly if you're dropping your price.
Yeah. Look, everyone makes that mistake. I can think of one account right now that we did that, and it was the worst decision ever. It was terrible. It was it wound up being a total resource suck.
And for those of you out there that are, I think those individuals or those companies that just, they come right to your top of your mind.
Yeah.
That you're thinking about. And if that's the case, exactly what you're talking about. And I don't want to paint everybody with a broad stroke right here, but I'm going to, because 9 times out of 10, those price shoppers are going to be like that. So if you think this one's going to be different, you think you're going to give this guy a heck of a deal, drop the price, and he's going to be the best customer ever, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not. So the point being is, we make this mistake too. So a lot of the reason we can speak to a lot of this is having made the mistakes. I did it in the car business.
You've been in sales at any point in time for anything longer than a day.
Because
I guarantee you made this mistake.
Everyone thinks that price is the most important lever to pull. So when you get the price objection, well, you're more expensive than XYZ. Then that's where,
and that's a relative term too.
It
expensive,
is. It is.
How'd you come to that?
Exactly. So that's where you need to have a discussion. So that's the second part of handling the price objection. So step one, acknowledge it. Step two, when it's brought to the forefront, of your mind, when your potential or current customer makes it an issue, that's where you say, okay, so, Kyle down the street is pricing this sheet stock at, X a sheet, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, in my customer saying, well, I'm going to go buy from Kyle. Okay, well, what is included in that price?
Yeah, is that an all-in price?
Is it all in?
Are they going to charge a delivery fee? Is there an installation fee? What are all those little things that add up to the actual cost?
What other steps?
A lot of consumers don't have the knowledge, and this is where your expertise comes into play too.
That's where you're selling your value, because
Absolutely.
that's all your value
Become
is
more consultative.
Priced. You price your value into your product.
Absolutely.
So it's really like
use that 15 or 20 years of experience.
It's like, okay, so yeah, they're $10 a sheet or $10 a foot or whatever, cheaper than me. But what are they including? Like, I don't know if I can match that deal, but I might be able to if you tell me what's included in that, because here's what comes with everything that I've given you. Here's what my price includes, and then
there's a product matchup.
Yeah,
to the same standard.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a lot of times too. Consumers will come back and it's two totally different levels of the product that they're talking about in terms of the cost. If that's the case, well, of course, this is going to be more expensive.
But when you're talking about commodities, it's product for product. So it's like
sure, but
it's still like
there's also your cheap commodity and your more expensive commodity.
Right, but I'm talking in context of you've got product for product. It literally would be like when I was selling an A4. Like an A4.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is, make sure you ask the question to make sure that it's product for product.
Find out, make sure it is the exact. That's
what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm sorry, misunderstood you. That's a really good point too, because you want to make sure that number one, you're being shopped on the exact same product, which with commodities you basically you should be, but you might not be.
You never know.
And you need to kind of like with the customer outline that, because then that gets them thinking in terms of value. They're not looking at the bottom line price. Yeah. They're not thinking about what they're paying. They're thinking about what they're getting.
Yeah.
And that's the value. What you get is that's your value. So that
it's almost like and this also comes back to if you're selling that value proposition, whatever it is for you, from the minute they walk into the door and have that first interaction, when you get to this point, if you did it right, it's almost like it doesn't really matter what that price is going to be.
No,
they're just going to give you the credit
because the value's there.
You've established and you've created the value.
Right. It's and that's like that all goes back, like we've talked endlessly about customer, the buying experience, the whole thing. But yeah, you're right. When you create, and that's another thing too, that's why someone was getting 50% margins selling the same stuff as like 8 people down the street and probably a home center a mile away, like everyone else is.
Yeah, he lived in a metro area, so he had other specialty retailers that were competitors. He had home centers that were competitors. Dude, and obviously you're online.
In our office, not even mentioning the behemoth, which is online. From our office, right where we're sitting, there are, that I can think of off the top of my head within 10 minutes, there are 3 home centers. There are 2 Home Depots and a Lowe's that I know of. And we're not in like a huge city.
No, average city.
And we're not downtown. So
it's like a top 40 metro.
Yeah, so I mean, again, the competition's there, so it's not that big of a deal once you acknowledge it, you discuss it, you understand what you're up against. And a lot of times, like, that is where it gets tricky, because that's where people will shy away and they'll be like, well, I don't want to. Well, you've got to ask. You've got to be like, hey, and that's where you're following up. Well, even when someone buys elsewhere, well, why'd you buy, from so and so? Finding out the why, and you'll usually find out that there are going to be cases, of course, where you get aced out. But there are also going to be cases where, like, you find that the value that was sold was significantly lower than what you sold, and then they come back to you.
Exactly, and don't underestimate the power of communication between individuals. So this one guy in particular that never will go below his 54% margin for anybody. Doesn't matter. He'll walk from the deal, and he's one location. He's doing over $20 million, and he's obviously grown it over a period of time. But just think about the network effect from those people that are coming in there, knowing that they're getting quality, they're getting service. Yeah, they're paying a little bit more than the Home Depot or Mr. Specialty down the road. Absolutely. He makes no bones about it. But he's also delivering on the other two.
Yeah, and that's the whole equation. I mean,
and the network effect then spreads to all the different customers and their friends.
Well, there's a reason Apple products cost more than Android products.
Absolutely.
It's because Apple's pushing an entire value proposition. It's how you buy, it's what you're buying, they control everything, and it's just better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like that value proposition to me personally is just better. So, I mean, I think, again, price objections, nothing to run from. Acknowledge it. That's really simple. You know you're going to get shopped. And when you do, just ask, find out why, how, figure out what the value is, figure out how it stacks up. And if you got to walk, you gotta walk. No is
Don't be afraid.
No is the most powerful word in a salesperson's vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. Time and time again. And again, remember that objection that you're more expensive it's a relative term, and I can't stress that enough. You ask a question: more expensive than what? Again, it comes down to stacking the item up peer to peer when they're talking about whatever it is that they're interested in. So
that's and that's where you've got to cannot stress enough. You've got to remove. Don't think about it in terms of price. Think about it in terms of value you're delivering. Demonstrating the value is greater, and that you have, or the greatest value that's out there, and that's where you get the wins. And definitely, I can't stress enough. Don't be afraid to walk. I mean, you just got to know.
Where that line is.
Yeah, and look, with commodities, when you're competing against, I think about a lot of our customers. They're competing against Wayfair. They're competing against Home Depot. Like, the only thing you have out of that three-part equation is the quality and the service. And don't be, too many people sit there and they pat themselves on the back and they think that they have all that covered without actually reevaluating it on an ongoing basis.
Continue working at it
and finding
Evolve.
out. And finding out that they are being aced out from a value standpoint because of something silly that they can easily remedy with either a change to their general process, how they're doing something, a piece of technology. It's just, so I think that the whole and to kind of elaborate on the value scope, that's value is quality, service, and then those are that's this huge umbrella. It's everything that goes on in the whole sales pipeline we talked about, the sale management process. It's about the after sale, what happens after the transaction's completed. All of that stuff is your value equation. For us, to give you an example, I'll give you an example for what we do, and then I'll give you an example from when I was in retail. So for us, we've got this whole onboarding and implementation success process. That is so different than what anyone else is doing. The other thing is we actually have experience, we have the resume to prove it. There's no one else there are very few in software overall, very few teams that have that experience. A handful I can think of. In the industries we operate in, zero. There's just no one. So we push that a lot because really it doesn't matter what someone's paying us. Our products are all about the ROI, which comes down to the use. So for us, we push the success. That's a lot of our value. It's the after sale. That's, again, later part of the sale pipeline. We produce a lot of content for people. We help them. We do a lot of things in terms of the remarketing, staying in front of them, all that. In the car business, for us, a lot of our value was obviously you buy a car once, but you get it serviced many times. So for
did you guys wrap that in?
A lot of times, so the manufacturers, again, because prefab good, right? The manufacturer warranty would cover all that. But what we did was we would actually send a driver with a loaner cart to get you and drop a loaner off.
Not a lot of people do that.
We had free pickup and delivery. We had free car washes. All the things that are a pain about owning a car, we tried to take out of the equation. So it made it, and what that did by fixing the backside, by adding more value on the backside of that transaction,
made it easier to come back.
It was smoother sailing going through the front end, though. Because when you find out, if you've got someone who's 30 minutes away and they don't want to come in, we'll go get their car and bring it in and give them a loaner or whatever. I think, stuff like that, that is the value. It's the whole package. It's the wholesale pipeline, the management process, all the stuff you've heard us go on and on about. But price objections, can't stress enough. Acknowledge it, inquire about it, figure out what the value is when you do encounter it. When someone says, well, I'm going to buy, or so-and-so down the street's cheaper, well, what are they selling you?
What are they selling you? Exactly.
Yeah, tell me about it. I want to learn more because I think,
make sure the commodities.
Yeah,
make sure that 2 pieces of flooring are the same or whatever it may be.
Right. Number one, I already think I'm providing you with the most value. And if I'm not, I want to know how I can provide more value, because then it kind of puts the control in the buyer's hands, because they're like, oh, I get to tell you how you can do a better job and give me more for my money. Awesome. Tell me all day. Love to hear about it.
And there will be just straight up price shoppers out there, and
you can't get away from
those. So you'll still have those, but by and large part, if you follow that and you do it on a repeated basis, I think you'll start seeing a lot of success in terms of your price going up, and you'll see better margins for it.
Yeah, no doubt. So don't be afraid to acknowledge shopping, competitors, all that stuff. When it's brought to your doorstep, and certainly when you are confronted, don't be afraid to ask for more details.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I think we covered what we want to cover. So again, for everybody that's joining us, absolutely thank you. We do this every Wednesday at 3:00, so feel free to share far and wide. We produce a lot of different content. If you have any ideas, different things that you want to address and get another opinion on, drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, check us out on Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram, all at The Lead Tool.
YouTube.
The
Lead Tool, SoundCloud. Just
SoundCloud for the podcast
Tool.
people.
Yeah.
Yep. Otherwise, awesome.
We appreciate it.
Everybody else have a great rest of the day.